The prayer that saved a family. Introduction. Before you hear this story, remember one thing. Sometimes the greatest battles are fought in silence, not on a battlefield, not in front of crowds, but in small homes where parents cry at night while their children sleep peacefully, unaware of the storm around them. This is the story of a family that lost almost everything. A family that faced hunger, debt, rejection, and heartbreak. A family that discovered that when every door closes, faith can open a new one. Most importantly, this is the story of a prayer that saved a family. So sit back, listen carefully, and allow this story to remind you that hope is never truly lost. Chapter 1. Better Days. In the bustling city of Enugu lived a hard-working man named Emeka Okafor. Emeka was not rich. He was not famous. He was simply a loving husband and devoted father. His wife, Ngozi, often described him as the strongest man she knew. Together they had 3 children: Chika, a bright 12-year-old girl; Daniel, a cheerful 9-year-old boy; and little Esther, who was only 6. Life was not perfect, but it was good. Every morning Emeka left for work before sunrise. Every evening he returned home with a smile. Their small rented apartment was always filled with laughter. They prayed together. They ate together. They dreamed together. Emeka often told his children, "Success is not about how much money you have. Success is having faith when things become difficult." At the time, those words seemed ordinary. None of them knew how much they would need them. Chapter 2. The beginning of the storm. One Monday morning, everything changed. Emeka arrived at work and noticed unusual silence. Employees gathered in groups, whispering nervously. Minutes later, management called everyone into the conference hall. The announcement was devastating. The company was shutting down immediately. Hundreds of workers were losing their jobs, including Emeka. The room erupted into confusion. Some people shouted, others cried, some sat frozen in disbelief. Emeka simply stared at the floor. His mind raced. Rent, school fees, food, electricity, medical bills. How would he provide for his family? When he returned home that evening, Ngozi immediately knew something was wrong. What happened? Emeka tried to speak, but the words refused to come. Finally, he whispered, "I lost my job." Silence filled the room. The children stopped playing. Ngozi covered her mouth. For several moments, nobody spoke. Then Emeka gathered everyone together. "We will pray." And they did. That night they prayed harder than ever before, believing the situation would soon improve. They had no idea the real struggle was only beginning. Chapter 3. One rejection after another. Weeks passed. Emeka applied everywhere. Banks, schools, factories, construction companies, government offices, private businesses, anywhere that had an opening. Every morning he left home carrying his documents. Every evening he returned with disappointing news. "No vacancies. We'll call you. You're not selected. We found someone else." The rejections continued. Day after day, week after week, month after month. Their savings slowly disappeared. The family began making sacrifices. First, they cancelled unnecessary expenses. Then they sold household items. Then they reduced meals from 3 per day to 2. Yet Emeka remained hopeful, at least outwardly, but deep inside, fear was growing. Chapter 4: The Children's Secret. One afternoon, Chika overheard her parents discussing money. Her father sounded worried. Her mother sounded frightened. That night she gathered her younger siblings. "We need to help Daddy." "But how?" Daniel asked. Chika opened a small box hidden beneath her bed. Inside were coins she had saved for years. Daniel immediately brought his own savings. Little Esther brought a small purse containing a few crumpled notes. The next morning they handed everything to their father. "Daddy, this is for the family." Emeka looked at the tiny pile of money. It wasn't much, but the love behind it broke him. He hugged all 3 children tightly and cried. For the first time since losing his job. Chapter 5: The Eviction Notice. 6 months later, things became worse. Much worse. Rent had not been paid. The landlord had been patient, but his patience finally ended. One evening he arrived carrying an envelope. "Emeka, you've been given enough time." Inside was an eviction notice. They had 14 days to leave. Ngozi felt her knees weaken. The children watched nervously. Their home was small, but it was their home. The thought of losing it terrified them. That night nobody slept well. The future looked darker than ever. Chapter 6: The Night of Desperation. 3 days before the eviction deadline, the family had almost nothing left. Only a little rice remained. No money, no prospects, no solutions. After dinner, Emeka stepped outside. The street was quiet. The sky was dark. He walked to a nearby church. The building was empty. Only a dim light burned near the altar. Emeka knelt. Then he began to pray. Not politely, not formally, but honestly. "Lord, I don't know what to do anymore." Tears streamed down his face. "I've tried everything. My children are suffering. My wife is hurting. I cannot save them. If you don't help us, we are finished." For hours he prayed. The church caretaker eventually found him. Yet Emeka remained there, pouring out every fear, every disappointment, every question, every tear. By the time he left, dawn was approaching. Nothing around him had changed, but something inside him had. Peace, a strange peace, a peace that made no sense, a peace that whispered, "Trust me." Chapter 7: The Last Meal. The following evening, Ngozi prepared the family's final meal. After tonight, there would be no food left. She placed the food on the table. Everyone understood the situation. Yet Emeka smiled. "Before we eat, let's thank God." The children looked surprised. Thank God? For what? There was almost nothing left. Still, they joined hands. Emeka prayed, "Father, thank you for every meal you have given us. Thank you for keeping us alive. Thank you because we know you are still working even when we cannot see it." They ate quietly. Afterward, everyone went to bed. None of them knew that their lives were about to change forever. Chapter 8: The Unexpected Visitor. The next morning, a black SUV stopped outside their building. A well-dressed elderly man stepped out. He asked neighbors for directions. Eventually, he reached Emeka's door. When Emeka opened it, he stared in confusion. The man looked familiar, very familiar. Then suddenly he remembered. 10 years earlier, a rainy night, a stranded traveler, a broken vehicle, an act of kindness. The stranger smiled. "Emeka, I've been looking for you." The man introduced himself as Chief Aidwale. Years ago, when his car broke down far from town, Emeka had helped him without asking for anything in return. Chief Aidwale never forgot. For years he searched for the young man who had helped him, and now he had finally found him. Chapter 9. The Miracle. After entering the house, Chief Aidwale listened to Emeka's story. The job loss, the debts, the eviction notice, the struggles, the prayers. When Emeka finished speaking, the old man was silent. Then he reached into his briefcase. He placed several documents on the table. "What is this?" Emeka asked. Chief Aidwale smiled. "A new beginning." The documents included full payment of the family's rent debt, funds for the children's education, financial support for immediate needs, a job offer managing one of his companies. Ngozi burst into tears. The children stared in disbelief. Emeka could hardly breathe. The answer to their prayers sat directly before them. Not months later, not years later, but right on time. Chapter 10. More than a miracle. As life improved, Emeka learned an important lesson. The greatest miracle wasn't the money. It wasn't the job. It wasn't the house. The greatest miracle was what happened to their faith. The hardship had taught them how to trust God during uncertainty, how to remain grateful during lack, how to stay united during crisis, how to keep believing when everything looked impossible. Years later, Emeka became successful, but he never forgot those difficult days. Every time someone asked about his success, he shared the same story. The story of unemployment, the story of hunger, the story of faith, the story of a prayer that saved a family. Powerful ending. Perhaps you are listening to this story today while facing your own struggles. Maybe your situation feels impossible. Maybe doors keep closing. Maybe you've prayed and nothing seems to be happening. But remember Emeka's story. The darkest night often comes just before dawn. The breakthrough often arrives when hope seems lost. And sometimes the answer is already on its way while you're still praying. Never stop believing. Never stop hoping. Never stop praying. Because one prayer can change everything. One prayer can restore hope. One prayer can open impossible doors. And one prayer can save a family. If this story inspired you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today.